And welcome to In the 661, Youth Voices for Kern, where we talk about topics that are of interest to the entire community, but also specifically to our youth here in Kern County. Faheemah Salahud Din is joining me now with First and Always Melanin.
Hi, it's very nice to meet you.
Great to meet you and have a good conversation.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Tell me more about your organization, how it was formed, and why.
So, First and Always Melanin, we go by the acronym FAM. We are a small grassroots organization that started off as a social group. It was created in the wake of Mike Brown's murder. There were a group of people here in town who were just really tired of seeing us misrepresented, all of the murders that had happened over the last few years, and they felt a need to make a change in the community. So the way it started was just more so a sharing of information. They would have educational movie showings and people would come, they would discuss the information, they would hand out pamphlets. So it started off as an educational resource. And I met the group early in its inception. Our vice president, Clifford Cole, he actually created the group. And I went to the second movie, it was the second movie showing that we had. And from there, I kind of had the idea of galvanizing us into more of a activist group, because that was what everyone wanted to do. We were voicing the same concerns, we had the same feelings. And so it all started with a program that we had called Black Winter. And essentially Black Winter was a coat and socks drive. I had read an article about how coats and socks were the most needed items at homeless shelters, but the least donated items. And so it was around, I think it was October. So I was like, okay, you know, we can do this. This is something that we can do to give back to the community. And so what we did was we actually held a open mic night, so to speak, like a showcase. We had singers, dancers, rappers, drum, all types of different things. And the cost of entry was a coat or like 5 pairs of socks. And so we were able to really raise a lot of resources that night, coats and socks for the children. And we gave them out at Emerson and also around town. So after that, people were like, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? And so then we sat down and we were like, we should turn this into a thing. Like, we like this and we're good at it and we work well, so we should turn this into a thing. And that's kind of how FAM was born. After Black Winter, which was December 2015, we turned it into a thing, and we've been a thing ever since.
Is it a thing kind of revolving around social justice items, things that you can do to improve your community? And
Absolutely. What we do is we find pockets of inequity in our community. As I was mentioning earlier, we have a very, very high rate of erroneous felonies in the Black community, in the brown community as well. And so what we do is through Proposition 47, once a month we reclassify people with nonviolent felonies to misdemeanors out of our little office space. We have an attorney that does that for free. We offer free legal aid, and we also do expungements. So that's one of the ways in which we're creating equitable spaces for our people in the community.
Let me ask you this, because this is kind of a national conversation that's been going on for quite some time. The birth of your organization kind of sounds similar to the Black Lives Matters movement. Your organization being First and Always Melanin. There's a conversation going on nationally, right? When we hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, there's pushback from others who say, let's flip that and use the phrase all lives matter. Because with the assumption there being that by saying Black Lives Matter, that you're implying that other lives don't matter, be it police lives, white lives, Asian lives, whatever it is. What do you say to those folks? I
say that you're speaking from a position of privilege. The fact that you can find it controversial, that other people find a need to say that their lives matter, show that you have a privilege of not necessarily thinking about your life being ended on a regular basis. That's like me going into a cancer support group and saying, well, I have lupus matters too. It's kind of like, this isn't the oppression Olympics. Black people are a traditionally marginalized group of people. We are killed at a higher rate than more than other races. Therefore, it birthed a need to say, hey, our lives matter. It's kind of like feminism. People say there's no need for feminism. If there was no need for feminism, it wouldn't exist. Chauvinism exists, so feminism has to exist. It's the same thing as LGBTQ rights. there's obviously someone there who is oppressing LGBTQ people. Therefore, there is a need to fight for those people's civil liberties and rights. It's no different. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying no one else matters. Of course, everyone matters. What we're saying is don't kill us for things that we didn't do. Our lives matter just as anyone else's, and we deserve to have a right to due process. If you arrest a Black person and they've done something felonious, okay, cool, take them to trial. Take them to trial, but you do not have a right to kill them just because they're a Black person and you felt uncomfortable. So that's what I would say in response to that.
I mean, you talked about felonies in this town. Do you think relationships between, the relationship between the Black community in this town is different with the police and the sheriff's department than it is kind of we saw in the national discussion over the last couple of years? Is it a better relationship here?
Oh, no, we have a horrible relationship with the police. Black people in Bakersfield don't trust the police, and with good reason. As the Guardian article showed back in 2015, the Bakersfield Police Department killed more unarmed citizens per capita than any other place in the United States. Those numbers did not come from nowhere. So I think that there is good reason for people of color, not just Black people, but for people of color to be afraid of the police. And I think that that resonates very deeply here locally. And I think that that sort of relationship is traditional across the board in the United States, because you have to understand that the origins of the police department were slave catchers. That's what they were originally there to do, to catch runaway slaves. And so that has kind of evolved into a new form of oppression and in a lot of ways modern day slavery. So traditionally marginalized groups such as the Black and brown communities have very, very tension-ridden relationships with the police for good reason, in my opinion.
And we're hoping to have the police chief on this program. Does it matter to you that we have a Black police chief now, and that his position, at least when I've talked to him personally, is that he's interested in reaching out to the community and changing the conversation? Do you think that that will change that dynamic that you're just talking about?
No, I'm very interested in hearing what he has to say, but I think there's a lot to be said. It's kind of silly to assume that just because he's Black, he would have Black people's interests at heart. That's not always the case with any situation. You know, there are white men who don't have white women's interests at heart. White actresses right now are galvanizing behind the, I think it's Time's Up. They're talking about, you know, not being paid properly and not being paid in compensatory with the men, right? So what I'm saying is that it's not lost on me that you can share the same skin as me, the same ethnic heritage as me, and not necessarily be interested in the things that affect me. So I'm very interested in hearing what he has to say, but, you know, for now it's just an open door to see what the dialogue will be.
All right, so you've been organizing some community events, in particular a screening of Black Panther for Black History Month. Why do you think that movie was important to show and have people attend?
Well, I feel like Black Panther was important to show because it is necessary for our children, for Black children, to see themselves represented in every pantheon of life. Black people are some of the highest rated consumers in the country. We're consuming fiction television, we're consuming literature, we're consuming, you know, toys and collectibles and all of these things, but none of these things represent us. Like, I'm a really big Harry Potter fan. I'm a nerd. I'm a really big Harry Potter fan. I love Lord of the Rings. I love the Hunger Games. We weren't in any of that. Well, there were maybe 2 in the Hunger Games, but my point in saying that is it's important for children of every ethnicity to see themselves reflected in the things that they love. And it's important for them to see people that look like them, that have their values, and come from where they come from. It's extremely important. And so for Black Panther, it held cultural relevance as well as just being a really cool superhero movie. So I took my daughters to the premiere. We sold 125 tickets total. I took my daughters to the premiere, and they were enamored. The first thing my daughter said when we walked out the studio was, Mom, she has hair like mine. She wears her hair in an afro too. So that reflection is extremely important for children. And they need to be able to see themselves in everything that they consume, so they know that there is no limit to what they can be, essentially. So yeah, that's why I think it was very important for Black children to see that film.
Well, thank you so much for joining
No
us
problem.
and talking to us about some of these issues, Faheemah. And thank you as well for joining us on In the 661 Youth Voices for Kern.